Hey guys, here we are for another update on the school greenhouse and garden. We have some good news, a little bit of bad news, but better news than I was thinking we might have at this point. So let's go in and take a look at the greenhouse and see how the watermelons are doing. So first of all, notice we have a sign leaving the door open, or telling people to leave the door open because closing the door will cook the plants. And as you can see, our little sugar baby just did not make it too much for it. The little watermelon that it made is starting to shrivel. It's pretty soft. The good news is the Dixie Lee seems to be very heat tolerant. It's doing very well. No flowering yet from our Dixie Lee. And it may be that it's a little hot for flowers. We can see there's one little flower that shriveled. Maybe there was too much heat. But we've got a few flowers or wannabe flowers here. So hopefully our Dixie Lee will do all right. Our two Desert Kings are doing okay. Some of the new leaves that it sprouted are pretty healthy. Some of the old ones got cooked. But we've got some good growth. I'm hopeful that our Dixie Lee watermelon will firm up and continue to grow. It's just about softball size now. It's doing pretty well in that sling that we've got it in, so we'll fix that a little bit so it can continue to grow, and we can see the Desert King just keeps spreading all over the place. Our milkweeds are definitely cooked. Just about everything else is cooked. But 3 out of the 4 watermelons managed to survive. And they're doing okay. I wish the sugar baby had held on, but, well, the life of a farmer. Sometimes things happen. So we're going to go and take a look at the outdoor garden here in a minute, and we'll see how that's doing. All right, so before we get to the watermelons, I do want to take a look at the potatoes because, again, life of a farmer, tragedy strikes. There's some things going on with our potato plants that I wish weren't happening, so let's take a look. Now, if you look closely, or not so closely, you can see that our poor potato plants are not being left alone. We've had, looks like some kind of beetle or caterpillar infestation here, and they've just been stripping some of these poor potato plants clean. We've got one here that's just about dead. So I'll take this opportunity now to actually pull it up and show you how we harvest potatoes and what they look like coming out of the ground. To do that's really easy. You just grab the stem by the bottom and slowly lift up. And you can see this potato plant didn't get really far along. You can see that it was growing out of this potato. It does have a new potato going here, so this one's all right, but just didn't get a chance to really make its little potato clones. So we'll just pop this guy off and leave him over there. And I've got another potato plant over here that was also eaten. The leaves were. Fortunately for it, it was a little more productive. The reds tend to do pretty well out here, so we've got one little potato, another little potato, and another one, and we can see that if it had had time to grow, it had all these little babies coming along too in the roots. So those are our potato plants. We hope that these guys will be able to hold on and be able to produce some larger potatoes. We were scheduled to harvest these the end of the week this week anyway. We'll see if we can hold on another week or two with them before the invertebrates have their way with the leaves. But that's our potatoes. Let's go take a look at the rest of the garden. All right, so coming along here, our loquat is doing well, but no flowers. So it doesn't look like we'll get loquats this year. That's okay, we'll give her another year. Lemon tree is still not doing too well. It's hanging on. And it is producing some more new leaves, we can see here, so that makes me happy. Coming along here to the figs. Figs doing great. And I wanted to take some time to take a look at this pomegranate because it's doing pretty well. And you can see this pomegranate flower is really a pretty flower. And one question you might ask yourself is, why is it that a pomegranate tree, which is mostly just green with this kind of light bark, right? Why would it spend a lot of its energy trying to make a flower that's pretty and red and yellow like this, right? I think most of you know the answer. The pollen from this flower needs to get transferred to another flower before it will fruit. And we learned about this with our watermelons. So the question is, well, how is pollen going to get from here over to here, right? How's it going to move? In some plants, pollen just drifts around in the air, and that's their strategy. But pomegranates, like a lot of flowering plants, they want to attract some kind of pollinator to get some pollen on their feet or other parts, and then fly over and deposit that pollen on another flower, right? And it's mostly bees that we think of when we think of pollinators, although moths and beetles and a lot of other insects can be effective pollinators as well. So hopefully we'll get some good pollination, and then we'll get some pomegranates later on in the year. As you can see, our sunflowers are doing great. They are also getting eaten though, which is sad, but that's the reality of farming life. We could use pesticides. We haven't used pesticides here, but we could consider it in the future to try and ward off these insects. As you can see, our watermelons out here in the outdoor garden are really doing well. They're spreading out. Some of them are doing better than others. They were planted earlier than others. But I want to compare over here on this side. This is our little experiment that we had started to do, where we had black plastic in one part of the garden and no black plastic in the other part. And it looks to me, and we'd have to measure this, but it looks to me like our black plastic is helping the plants to grow. The plants that were planted underneath the black plastic are really spreading out and are doing much better than the ones that weren't on the plastic, okay? So this is something to consider in the future. We'll probably want to keep doing black plastic mulch. It's a way to help the soil warm up, and it's a way to keep the plants protected from insects, because a lot of insects don't want to crawl over that black plastic to get to the watermelons. All right. Our basil's doing well. Our marigolds are doing well. They're bushing out. We got a nice tall sunflower here, but unfortunately, the poor watermelon that was trying to live in its shade just couldn't take it anymore, and it died, which is really sad. But the other watermelons are doing okay. One over there probably got planted a little too late, a little too hot for it. No flowering yet, which kind of has me a little bit worried about these guys. It might be a little too hot at this point for good flowering to take place. We'll see. We'll keep monitoring them. It was just such a cold March and beginning of April that they just didn't get off to a good start out here in the outdoor garden. So we'll cross our fingers for the watermelons. Next, let's take a look at the corn, which is doing some really fun things. Let's take a look at it. All right, coming over here to our corn, we can see we've got these new structures growing up out of the corn, and these are the corn flowers, right? Right now we've just got some male flowers. We don't have, I don't think, any females yet, but that's okay. But corn, like most plants that we're growing in the garden, has to get pollinated before it will make fruit. And these are the flowers that it grows to pollinate. Now, the thing about corn is it's mostly a wind-driven process. We don't have that kind of colorful flowering with corn that we get with, say, a pomegranate. So to help things along with our corn, we're actually going to hand pollinate these once they're ready, and that might be in a week or so. But reproductive strategies, right? The pomegranate makes a nice red flower, hoping to attract bees. On the other hand, the corn is going to produce a lot of pollen and rely on wind, or human intervention in this case, to get that pollen from the male flowers to the female flowers. Other flowers, interestingly, have male and female parts as part of the same flower, and they can pollinate themselves. So a lot of different kind of reproductive strategies that plants use. If we look down here, we've got our potatoes, and they're doing well. Potatoes and corn get along well together. And I'm so excited. Remember those peanuts that we planted? Well, here they are. They've sprouted, right? We've got some nice peanuts coming up, and we hope they'll manage to survive. They survived the heat wave, so I'm hopeful with our peanuts we'll get continued good growth, and we'll be able to take a look at the peanut roots and see what kind of symbiotic relationships they develop with the nitrogen-fixing bacteria. All right, so let's take a look over here to our banana tree next. And the banana is really loving this heat. It's one of those heat-loving plants, and it is unfurling yet another leaf. Now that it's nice and warm, it's going to unfurl a new leaf just about every week. And it is substantially bigger than it was when we got it. The base, its so-called trunk, is wider and taller now. So I'm hoping in another 6 to 10 months that we'll get a nice big banana tree with blue bananas. We've got some more flowering taking place here with our Italian parsley. These are its flowers. And I am probably going to have to pull that up pretty soon. Our regular curly parsley just won't die. But the cilantro is dying. It's run its course. It has made its flowers. And if you look very carefully, we've got some dried flowers. And if we were to open these up, we would start to see some seeds inside. We've got over here some seeds developing pretty well right now. They got pollinated. So cilantro seeds can be used in cooking, so we might just keep some of these. We might grow another cilantro in the fall and winter. That seemed to do well. We've got another cilantro. And over here in the middle, we haven't really talked about this yet. We've got some amaranth growing, some amaranto. This is a very ancient plant in the Americas. It's been used for a long time, particularly in Central America. And its seeds are like a grain, and they've been used for thousands of years in Native American cultures. Currently, they're used to make alegrias. You can pop them and form them. They're almost like Rice Krispies. Some of you might be familiar with them. So I'm really hopeful that our amaranth can grow up and do well. And we'll come over here and we'll take another look at our calendula that's been doing so well. And we'll just pop some more of these flowers off so that we can use them as part of our soap making project in the fall. Some people argue that calendula has antimicrobial properties, and that hasn't been terribly well explored. It's possible, but what we do know is that the calendula flowers do not change color when exposed to the very basic solution, the lye that we use to help make our soap. So that's why we're growing it. And people can believe what they want to believe, I guess. And there is some peer-reviewed literature out there about calendula and antimicrobial functions. Also going to come over here. This is another fun flower that we're growing. Okay, it's called chamomile or manzanilla. And the manzanilla flowers are really sweet. Okay, and they're used to make a tea. So you can take these manzanilla flowers, and some of them have been pollinated and are going to seed now. But you can take the flowers and steep them in hot water and make a tea out of them. Okay, so we've got some manzanilla flowers here, some chamomile flowers, and we're gonna come over here. We've got a lot more growing here in our fruit tree guilds that we're trying to build up. So we'll just pop these flowers off. Again, chamomile tea is very popular, and if you smell the flowers, they smell really nice. They're very fragrant. They're very sweet. A lot of people drink chamomile tea because they feel it relaxes them. Okay. And maybe that's a placebo effect, and maybe it's real. But regardless, it tastes good. That's why I drink it. So we'll just keep harvesting these chamomile flowers until we have a nice little harvest. We can make tea out of several things in the garden. We can make tea out of the chamomile. We can also make tea out of the mint, and we can also make tea out of the lemon balm. And teas have been around for a long, long time. They're helpful. They were helpful for thousands of years because they helped heat up water. And by heating up water, you kill pathogens that might be residing in the water. So we've got a nice big crop of chamomile flowers, very pretty, very fragrant. So we can make some manzanilla tea, and we might just break off some whole branches here to make it a little easier on ourselves so it goes a little faster. Okay. And we're hopeful that enough of these will flower and go to seed that they'll start self-seeding, and we'll just have some chamomile flowers grow up every year. And hopefully when we are not socially distancing ourselves anymore, we can try making some chamomile tea in class. So you can toma manzanilla. But again, this is a nice, beautiful chamomile crop. You can also, and I think I probably will do this as well, a lot of people like chamomile in cosmetics and things like soap. Shampoos are often chamomile scented. So we might do some extractions with our chamomile as well with our soap project, so that you can choose to have calendula or chamomile infused into your soap. But again, these flowers are colorful. They're different than the rest of the plant. We got these yellow centers with white petals. And again, this is to attract pollinators so that pollen from one flower can get placed onto another flower, fertilizing the eggs in that flower so you can have reproduction. So this is probably a nice, good little harvest of chamomile flowers. If you're suffering from anxiety, if you're feeling nervous about things, you might consider having a little chamomile. Even if it's a placebo, it might make you feel a little better and a little less nervous about things. So it's something to consider. Lots of people drink chamomile tea. It's good for you. It's not exactly bad in any event. So that's that on chamomile. All right, one more thing before we wrap this up. We've got our jujube, and it is starting to flower as well. Little flowers on this big thorny tree. Oh my gosh. Jujube is actually a very nice fruit to eat. So maybe we'll get some jujubes. Coming over here to our apple tree. I haven't been seeing any flowers on the apple tree. I think this might just be a growing year for it, where it can get strong. We had a few flowers early on, but they just got eaten and they just aren't going to make it, I don't think. They didn't get pollinated, and that's okay. We can let the apple tree grow. It doesn't need to make fruit its very first year here. Coming over here, we do have a nice big fig that's been growing on our fig tree. And speaking of tea, we've got our nice little mint guild growing under the fig tree. And I might take a few sprigs of mint, throw them in with my chamomile tea. Some people actually make tea out of calendula flowers. I'm not sure I really like that very much, but chamomile and mint are very nice. They're very fragrant. They make a good tea. I'll just take a few of those. Take them home and make a nice tea. Again, you can just throw these into boiling water. I use a tea infuser so that the leaves aren't floating around in my tea. There we go, some chamomile and some mint for some tea. All right, so I just wanted to, before we leave and wrap this up, showcase again, in this one view, we've got both reproductive strategies that we've been talking about. Here on the left, we have our chamomile flowers, which are colorful, that are meant to attract pollinators. Same with the calendula flowers, again, very bright, very colorful, meant to attract things like bees and moths and beetles, other pollinators. But down here, we've got our potatoes, right? And these grew in the roots. They had nothing to do with the flowers. They grow in the roots of the potato as it clones itself. So we have sexual reproduction with flowers. That's one reproductive strategy. And then we have asexual reproduction with our potato clones. So that'll be it for this week's garden update. Heavy on reproductive strategies in pomegranates and calendula and chamomile and corn. Good news about the watermelons. 3 out of the 4 survived. Little sugar baby died, and that's sad, but that's okay. Some of our potatoes died, but that's how it goes. Insects share the planet with us too. So we'll do another update soon, maybe this week, maybe next week. Until then, stay safe, wash your hands. We'll talk to you soon.